Hey, welcome to the Drep and Stone podcast, the podcast where two friends raise a glass and have a conversation. I'm Nick.
I'm Kyle.
Kyle.
Hey, man.
Hey, how was your Thanksgiving, bud?
Ah, man. It was great.
Was it?
It was all right.
I mean, I was at that Thanksgiving. I think great was, yeah, you're right. It was all right.
Man, I told you
Yeah.
that, that's why we didn't fake it last time, was that I had to be legit and be honest. That, like, we hadn't done Thanksgiving yet.
No, we haven't. Or
And-
hadn't at that point.
And there's always something that happens at that party. And sure enough, my AC blew. Didn't blow, but shut off.
Is that why you took off your shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just for funsies.
Well, I mean, that too.
Oh.
I mean, it happened after I took my shirt off. But
Correlation might be causation in this case.
yeah.
Your
Yeah.
AC blew up, and it's because you took your
Because it got too hot in there. We're working too hard.
got to cool Kyle down.
Yeah.
And nothing.
just
Nothing
couldn't
could
do
cool. Nothing.
Couldn't do it.
Right.
So I just gave up.
Did you get it fixed? Everything good?
Yeah,
You MacGyvered that shit.
I did. Yeah. Duct tape always gets you there.
Duct tape and
And
a rusty spoon.
coax cable
Oh, is that
and an ice pick.
a coax cable, kids?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah, let's go to that process. What is that?
I don't
You
know.
used to have to plug your TV into the wall.
TV into the wall. They've never always been wireless?
No.
Oh.
No, we didn't just come across the wireless TV in the wild. We had to work up to it.
Invent it. So now we are post-Thanksgiving. We're in our post-Thanksgiving state.
Post.
Yeah. And it's now the Christmas season? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, in my house, we're there
Day after Halloween?
Thanksgiving. Yeah, yeah we fall in that boat. But for other people,
Right.
are you just now entering?
Are
Are you still not into it yet?
No. So here's what I did. I actually started listening to some Christmas music.
Oh shit!
I know.
Did you tell your wife?
She is unaware. I'll
Fair
tell you, here's my play. Like, she actually leaves in the morning before I do.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll be like, Alexa, play Christmas classics. And then I get like, Gene Autry, I get a little Bing Crosby. I get a little bit in.
Yeah.
And it's actually just enough where, you're not, to me anyway, not sick of it.
Right.
To be fair, I'm only like 3 or 4 days in.
Just taste.
Yeah. Like, I don't work in a place that there's Christmas music playing all the time.
Good for you.
But you love it. You love that Christmas music.
Yeah, it is actually good Christmas music. Like, it's not like the annoying stuff that you get tired of.
Oh, you got like the Harry Connick and the Bublé's and the things like that? They play those things?
Nah. The Andy Williams and a lot of instrumental stuff.
Oh,
So it just kind of fades
good.
in the background.
Yeah, instrumental's good.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of get in the Christmas mood though when it's 85 outside.
Man,
We
you're
are
not
both
kidding.
wearing shorts and short sleeves.
Yeah, I hung some lights on the back porch the other day. By the time I was done, I'm
Covered.
like literally like dripping. And, like,
Covered in sweat.
it was not that hard a thing to do. It was just like hang it, whoo, done. It was awful.
And I don't know about you, but like as a kid, you hear, White Christmas and you're like,
What's that?
yeah. I mean, did it ever snow in
heavy
the
pollen?
wilds of North Alabama?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We had in my memory.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 like really good snows that we had.
Ooh.
But like only once I think we literally had a white Christmas.
Oh, gotcha.
But it was not a common thing. Like you'd get snow, and then you might get snow again in like 5 years.
And it's probably not a snow that like sticks. It's probably like
Well,
snows
no,
like-
that's what I mean. Like snows that actually stay. Like they'd get dustings and stuff like that all the
gotcha.
time, but then like by morning it's gone.
Here in Central Florida, nah.
Yeah.
It's gotten cold.
Ever?
No, I think it snowed like in the 70s. Like,
Oh no, I mean
oh.
like, do you remember?
oh no,
anything?
no. No. I know, like actually a couple years ago. This is like within our adulthood. A couple
Right,
years ago,
right.
you being here, it got really cold. I don't think it was Christmas, but it got cold in like January, February one year, and it like snowed
Yeah.
for everybody on the video. Snowed in like Orlando, like flurries.
Yeah, I feel like I remember actually like seeing like there was some accumulation, like maybe a little south of the Panhandle.
Yeah,
Not quite what you would call Central Florida, but
yeah,
it was
something
getting
like
down.
that.
It was
Yeah,
close.
but I mean, we've had some frosty mornings,
Indeed.
but not really snowing that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're in that Christmas season, which means we're also in
We're still in it, man.
Scotch season. Scotch season. Who doesn't love Scotch season?
My wife. But other than that, I don't really.
Well, people.
know
I mean, most of the Drep and Stoners probably love Scotch season.
yeah, I would hope so.
I mean, if not, that's fine because you're here for the good conversation. You're here for the good community.
That's right. We're gonna tell you how good it is anyway.
You don't
Doesn't
have to
matter.
drink it.
Yeah, you don't have to drink
Yeah,
it.
you
Saves
don't
more
have
for
to
us.
drink it. Yeah, exactly. In fact, actually nobody drinks Scotch. so I can have all the Scotch. Kyle, today we are going to discuss, we're going to get into our first Scotch from Jura.
And we're both barefoot. We're gonna dip our toes into the old Jura.
You know why we're barefoot?
What's that?
Because it's 85 degrees outside.
Because it's in the islands.
Oh.
And,
well, that works too.
Toes in the sand.
Yeah.
Toes in the water.
This is our first Scotch from Jura.
Yeah, it is.
Jura is actually the island that is northeast of Islay.
Correct.
So it's not an Islay Scotch. We were debating this off pod.
Yeah, they're damn close. Really close.
Yeah, no, I would have kept damn close.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna make a pun on damn.
There was a pregnant pause there.
Ooh, that's a callback. So Jura comes from the Isle of Jura. They do some marketing there. The Isle of Jura. You ever had a Jura Scotch?
No.
No. I mean, I'm gonna say me neither, because I just had like
A little bit.
like a neck pour.
Yeah.
Like not even a full pour. I did it for a fresh crack that's on our Patreon there.
Yeah.
Before we pop it open though.
Yeah.
There's a couple
I like
words.
right off the bat.
Yeah, sure.
Cool, unique bottle.
Yeah.
It even like mentions the bottle design on the sleeve here.
Oh, does
about, like how it's a unique shape specifically to
Holding your hand?
like where does it say it? A bottle originally shaped to withstand the roughest of journeys from our home.
Interesting.
So it's like the shape of the bottle is like specific to Jura.
And I would say like it's a little more hourglass shape.
Yeah, it's really reminiscent to that Weeder.
Larceny?
Yeah, it's reminiscent of the Larceny.
It kind of is reminiscent of the Larceny. Larceny looks like a key. This kind of looks
Same
similar.
color scheme. I
Yeah,
think, too.
it really is. Want me to read you some bottle words?
Yeah.
Should I read bottle words or sleeve canister?
The sleeve words were really nice too.
Okay.
I don't know if they're different.
Actually, the sleeve words have the bottle words on it, so I'm just going to put the bottle down for a right quick. I'm just going to leave read the sleeve words. You're going to read the bottle? You're going to hold the bottle?
I'm just going to
caress it.
Vanna White it.
Ooh. Tease it a little bit.
Turn those letters.
Ooh.
Just like
When she actually had to turn the letters?
Yeah, back in the
Yeah.
the old days.
Notice it on the this is actually really funny.
I noticed that too. What you're about to say.
On the sleeve, they don't have Isla.
They don't include it, even though it's right
It
there.
literally is right below Jura. They do not include
So
Isla.
funny.
That's so great.
That's shady.
Yeah. a little bit.
Throwing that shade.
Welcome to Jura. A few miles off the west coast of Scotland, you'll find our island. Isolated, sometimes wild, yet always beautiful. Home to 200 islanders, one road, one pub, and one distillery. Since 1810, this unique island malt has been our greatest endeavor and our greatest reward. Its creation, the heart of an unbreakable bond between our island, our people, and our whiskey.
It's beautiful.
It is 200 people.
I know.
Like what?
One road,
One pub,
one pub,
one distillery. Title of my next novel.
Yeah.
200 people, one road, one pub, one distillery.
That movie trailer voice.
In a world. Jura 10-year-old, which is, we didn't say that. This is the Jura 10-year-old, a whiskey only Jura could make, born of our island and still produced today in a bottle originally shaped to withstand the roughest of journeys from our home. He read that earlier. Crafted in uncommonly tall stills, matured in the fresh sea air, and white American oak bourbon barrels, and finished in the finest aged Oloroso sherry butts. Finally, this is actually on the bottle, but it's on the canister too. It says, a touch of peat brings a rich and rounded balance of subtle smoky notes with a sweet sherry cask finish. It is warm in color with aromas of fruit, cracked pepper, and dark chocolate, and flavors of nectarines,
Incredible.
ginger, and freshly ground coffee.
That's a lot of flavor.
That's a lot of,
That's packing it all in there.
it's putting a lot on it. Hey, got a quick question.
Uh-huh.
Now that I've read some bottle words, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, I've been properly tantalized. Ready to get into it.
Let's do it.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. What'd you think?
That's a great pop.
Yeah, it is. Real cork. A little kind of like stubby cork, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like corkboard. Well, that was impressive.
Thank you, sir. That's for you. And a one for me as well.
All right.
What do you think about color?
You read, what'd you say, tangerine?
I think I said nectarine, but
Nectarine?
I think that was on
it's,
the...
It's giving me like an orangey kind of tint to this.
I mean, the
if I'm making
canister's
that up.
Well, maybe the
Well,
canister's a little
the
orangey,
coloring is a little orangey.
like a tanny.
Yeah, it's suggesting citrus to me.
You know what? I'm holding up to the light, and I would say like golden honey.
Yeah.
Like it's not like bourbon dark, but it's definitely darker than some of the scotches that we've had, which brings me back to my hypothesis about peated scotches.
Yeah.
Like this says it's subtly peated, but like you think about all the Isla scotches, and they are just light AF.
Yep. Let that peat lighten them up.
Yep.
Lighten them up.
Hey, I didn't spill any scotch on me this time.
Boring.
I know.
Bad sign.
Ooh, buddy. On the nose.
That's fantastic. Prominent note.
Like caramel.
Yeah, I'm going butterscotch.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, they're right there.
Everything I said, I disagree with myself, and I agree with you. I was confident.
Damn right.
I'm back
Damn
to
right.
it, and then I'm saying, yes, whatever you want. Let's do that.
That's good. That's really good. I get butterscotch. It's just caressed by this lovely little coffee bean
Yeah.
on the back end of it.
So,
Just kind of slaps it as it goes by.
caressed.
As it's going out the door, just go get him, Tiger.
We both have a mutual friend who has a daughter in the Girl Scouts.
Okay.
And the Girl Scouts, in addition to their ever popular cookies, they also have these, they do like candies when they're not doing cookies. I guess like the cookies or the candies are like a fall kind of thing. Cookies are like a spring kind of thing, I guess.
Sure.
But they have these butter toffee candies, and pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what it reminds me of.
Yeah, there are like some toffee kind of
Yeah.
notes, which
But
I guess that's in that same realm of like, caramel, butterscotch, toffee.
But it's like really, to me, really buttery. Like a good, like high quality butter.
that Kerrygold.
Like Kerrygold. Can we say that when we're talking about scotch? The more I go from like one nostril to the other, because we kind of do that to just see what else is there,
Yep.
I'm getting more of that coffee note, but it's not like a fresh ground black coffee. It's like you ever left like a cup of coffee in like your car, and there's like maybe, I don't know, it's not even a sip left. It's like just a drop that's dry at the bottom. You open your car door.
right.
I know that's really specific, but
Yeah.
if you've done this,
You're
you know
taking me
exactly,
there.
Yeah, and that's
Paint the
exactly
picture for me.
Thank you. That's exactly what it smells like. It's like coffee that's a little old, but it's still coffee, and I don't hate it by any means.
What's interesting is, having, I just did a fresh crack.
Yeah.
Of the Glen Morangi,
Ooh,
the Quinta Reuben,
yeah,
and that's another sherried whiskey.
right.
And having had as much as I've had of the Abanad,
Yeah,
and now having that one off the nose, I'm surprised I'm not getting more sherry.
yeah,
Since it's saying that it's aged in sherry.
butts.
This actually says cask, a sweet sherry cask finish.
Interesting.
I know.
This
It said butts
the
on
thing
on
says
back.
butts. Yeah, proof almost non-existent.
Yep.
It's 80. It's an even 80, which I'm not disappointed by, because I've said this before. I kind of like starting at the entry level.
Sure.
I know that, like, just doing a little bit of research, there's a level down from the 10, which is the Jura Journey, which doesn't have an age statement. I don't know if it's a level down. I'm saying that like, oh, it's worse. I'm not saying that. I think it's just this one doesn't have an age statement.
A little cheaper.
I didn't do that much research.
Just saw the word.
I just saw the word.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
Moving
I saw
on.
the picture. Yeah. I saw the word and I saw the picture. You're asking me questions.
Well, I'm curious now.
It's definitely not. The Jura Journey is definitely not aged as much. I mean, there's a 12. There's
It's just less age, but it's still 80 proof.
Yeah, it's still 80 proof. All of that to say, I would say like this is their pretty
Standard.
standard. Like this is their standard. 10 years at the base age.
This is the benchmark.
Yep. All right.
Cool. Let's go.
I'm gonna say it.
Yep.
Enough sniffing. Time for sipping. Going in.
I think it is a fine representation of Scotch.
Yep.
That second sip gave me just a little bit of a bite.
Sure.
It is 80 proof,
Yep.
so
Little thin.
a little thin, a little watery.
Yep. I'm gonna say curveball from the nose.
I'll say that too.
The nose is very sweet. The nose is like super warm, and the palate is not sweet, which I actually do enjoy, because I you know me. I'm not super big on the sweet. I do enjoy, but it's dry. Does that make sense? It's like
It does have a
white,
drying finish on it, interestingly enough.
like it feels like a dry white wine,
Yeah.
like a crisp like Pinot Grigio,
Right.
Like
Pinot Grigio's good. Yeah, I wouldn't go all the way like Chardonnay dry. But yeah.
look at us using wine terms like we know what the fuck we're talking about. I've opened
the tannins on this one are.
I've opened a bottle of wine once. It said something about foots on it. Barefoot.
Barefooted. It's a really friendly Scotch.
Yeah.
It's got good flavors. They're a bit muted, but I like everything that's there.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
agree. I think muted is right. Like the sleeve said something about nectarines, coffee, and like I feel like I can be convinced of that, but I don't necessarily feel like that's what I'm getting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like you could talk yourself into
Yeah.
finding them.
I am getting this like kind of cool like little leather note though. They actually really appreciate.
Which is really interesting. Like an 80 proof whiskey, what it allows you to do is like really put the whiskey in your mouth and hold it there. Mm-hmm. You don't feel like you need to swallow so much to let your tongue acclimate.
Right.
You can just kind of keep it in there and swish and swirl and really find some like kind of interesting qualities that you can't normally do with a higher proof.
I agree. But the thing that like an 80 proofer does is it lacks complexity. Yes, I'm getting notes here, notes there, but like the complexity that you get out of something that is 100 proof.
Right.
That's not to say I'm disappointed, but I'm also not appointed.
Sure. Everything that's in there is enjoyable. I like it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got good flavors.
It does.
They're just all the flavors are on like a 3-4
Yeah.
range. I would love to have them
Just dialed
kicked
up.
up because like everything that it's saying, like you were saying, like, you know, I could be convinced of it. I could talk myself into finding that stuff. But like I don't really get sherry at all on it. The coffee is more on the nose, but like you're saying, I think I could find it on the finish.
Yeah.
The nectarine quality. Those are all flavors that like when you're reading it and you're smelling it, you're like, yep, I get that. Yep.
Yep.
Sure. And then when you go to the palate, it is, I mean, it's, like I said, it's super friendly. I would recommend this to anybody that's like, oh, you want to get into Scotch?
Oh, yeah.
Try this.
That is perfect. It is a perfect entry level Scotch. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's giving you all those malty notes very much as a Scotch should. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't give you anything that's abrasive in any way.
No.
Like it's very velvety. It's very smooth. It's very straightforward, you know? And the nose is amazing.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing disappointing about this, especially when you place it. You know what I mean? I think that's something that I'm disappointed in the world of whiskey, and maybe to some degree, like ourselves included, where we think about things in the lineup of all of it rather than placing the thing where it is, and is it a good representation of that thing? And what I mean by that is like, is this a good representation of an 80 proof Scotch? I think it is.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a great representation.
Yeah, you put this up against a cask strength Highland Park Gulf Coast edition, and the answer is no, it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, but like, you know, and two, it's placing yourself on your journey.
Right, exactly.
Of where are you at currently?
Right.
You know, like, yeah, like that's where we'd prefer to be right now. But if you're just entering into Scotch and like experimenting and
Right.
stuff, like this would be a phenomenal place to start.
Yeah, well, what I'm like getting at too is so much of the whiskey world, the whiskey Twitter, whiskey Facebook, you know, just in general, and in other podcasts, it's like this is the best because of this thing. But like, I don't know, take a step back. This is really good, and it's an 80 proofer Scotch. If you put it against a 30-year Scotch, no, it's probably not going to be the best out of those two. Like that comparison doesn't make sense. We're both guilty of this too, but like.
Called me out.
Call myself out too, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
Like when you think you said this is a good representation of that thing, and I agree. Let me ask you this, Pete?
Oh yeah, no, not even a whiff of peat.
Not at all.
Not a smidgen. Not a
Drop
atom. Like not nothing.
a subatomic particle.
Certainly, perhaps a theoretical quantum realm
Nugget. I just like to for them to like put Pete on this bottle, like
Yeah, I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would.
I mean, I'm not discounting.
Because I think there's a lot of people that would see Pete and be like, oh, well then never mind.
exactly. That's
I'm
what
not
I'm,
gonna
that's
like
what I'm getting at.
Whereas those people, like I've got somebody that I am on in my head right now that I think would enjoy this.
Yeah.
Because it's muted.
Right.
The scotches that I've had that person try are like hasn't liked any of them.
Sure.
Because I think the flavors are just too much. This would be the perfect
That's the one.
bottle for that person.
But you're right. You put peat on the bottle, and people expect a certain level of thing. And for some people, that's a huge turnoff. Like you see
Yeah.
peat, and you're like, nah, no peaty scotches,
Yeah.
which I totally get. I'm not discrediting that they use or they don't use malted barley that's toasted with peat, because why would they lie to us? Like,
Sure.
but like,
Yeah.
this is to market it or to call it peated, little funky.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's getting outside of your understanding of a thing.
Right.
And maybe, in Scotland or just in other places in the world, it's not as confusing a thing. But like, I had a conversation the other day with someone who her understanding of Scotch was that they're all peated.
And I get that. Like, I get that perspective.
And like, she was saying that, like, her only interaction with Scotch, her only experimentation in Scotch was a Lafroig. And she was just like, it's just not for me. It was really, and she couldn't come up with a word. And I was just like, was it like medicinal? Was it like band-aidy and smoky? She's like, yeah. And like, she's like, it started with an L. And I was like, it's probably Lafroig.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's it. And I was like, yeah.
I know a thing or two.
I was like, that's not where you want to start in any realm of Scotch, even though it's also 80 proof. If you get like just the regular.
I mean, I am proof positive of that exact thing too.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
You remember a couple years ago, I was like, I don't know about these peaty scotches, Kyle.
Yeah.
And like, now I'm like, what? This doesn't. I'm disappointed.
Yeah. You say peat and there's no peat. Don't like that at all.
Where's that?
Bullshit.
Where's that peat? Yeah. Hey, will you pour me a bit more? Thank you. Not on me.
It's not a real episode.
All right, Kyle. Now that we have, I don't know if I don't know if I want to call it great. I'm gonna call it
great. Great's tough. We have a good drink. I would never, if anybody was ever like, hey, you want to pour Jura? I'd be like, yeah,
I'll
that's
take
fine.
One. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I'm in the mood for some Scotch.
Sure,
always.
Okay,
and that's a good Scotch.
I agree.
It's not a bad Scotch. I'm not going to turn my nose up at it.
All right, Kyle. Now that we've got a good drink here,
yes, sir.
What do you want to talk about this week?
First of all, we'll shout out Wisecrack.
Do it.
Wisecrack is such a
Wisecrack. Oh,
that's perfect.
Thanks.
Wisecrack is such a cool YouTube channel that does a lot of philosophy and pop culture, and we get so many good insights from their content and things like that.
Especially like they've kind of like delved more into philosophy here recently, within the last I'd say 2 years or so.
Totally. And I think a lot of their content creators are actually from Florida too, so it's kind of a interesting connection for us.
We got to reach out to those guys.
Yeah, we probably really should. Maybe we could do the Wisecrack whiskey.
Ooh.
But no, yeah, like shout out to those. If you haven't like looked up Wisecrack on YouTube, totally do it. Their stuff is awesome. So I was watching a Wisecrack video, and the little thumbnail that was on YouTube had a big fluffy character that I'm quite familiar with in my household.
Yeah.
It was Totoro.
Your neighbor?
No. My neighbor. Your neighbor? My
neighbor.
I was like, what the fuck's he going with? Oh, yeah, My Neighbor Totoro. That's the name of the movie. We always just call it Totoro.
Whiffed it. You just whiffed it.
Sorry.
I set it up and you just...
But it's one of those wicked whiff balls. Like, it was whiffle balls with that wicked curve on it.
Yeah.
Yes, My Neighbor Totoro. The ever so popular 1988, I want to say, animated movie.
Hayao Miyazaki.
Indeed. But then was redubbed with a bit more of a all-star cast in the late 90s, I think.
That sounds
maybe
right.
Early 2000s, which is the version that like we've watched.
Oh, okay.
The thumbnail on the YouTube video is Totoro actually a tragedy?
Ooh.
And I was like, what? Like, having seen the movie several times, my kids love that movie. It's very much just like kind of a nice, chill, relaxing, kind of gives you warm feelings.
Yeah.
Kind of a animated movie.
Okay.
And I was like, how are they getting tragedy out of this? So I start watching the video.
Yeah.
Obviously. And knowing that it was from Wisecrack, it's like, this is going to be good. In the video, they explained that Totoro was originally produced and made and released alongside of another animated movie from the same studio.
I've heard about this, yeah.
Which was a movie called Grave of the Fireflies.
That does not sound happy.
Doesn't sound happy, but at the same time, like nothing I'd ever heard of. Like that, that movie title did not sound at all familiar to me.
Sure.
In the realm of Studio Ghibli and other movies from non-American companies.
Yeah.
That was just not one that I had ever heard of.
Yeah.
So the fact that like Totoro, this kind of big franchise that I think most people, they may not know the character's name, but they've probably seen it.
Yeah.
And would be familiar with the character of Totoro. Would, so like I was just kind of blown away by it of all right, so what is this? So the video, they start to dive into it. They're explaining the connection, the correlation of these two movies being made together simultaneously at the same time and then being released together.
Are they connected?
And how do they have a conversation with each other?
Oh, okay.
You know, just in viewing any two movies, if you just pick two random movies
right.
and watch them simultaneously, you're going to find some way to connect them,
sure.
you know, find some sort of a similar theme or topic or somewhat. You know? Like in the video, they give the two movies of, if you watch Jurassic Park and Beethoven, the dog movie from the early 90s, like you would certainly find a similar theme of like humanity trying to control nature.
Jeff Goldblum.
Yes. Chaos. That's one big pile of shit. And so like, sure enough, like, yeah, like you could totally do that. And so to know that these two movies, Totoro and Grave of the Fireflies, were made together, what's the connection between them?
Right.
How were they complementing each other?
So you had not heard nor seen, obviously, Grave of the Fireflies.
Indeed.
Okay.
And after watching this video where they explain that this movie, Grave of the Fireflies, is completely different from Totoro in practically every way, but there are certain things that are similar. And understanding that it is very much a tragic story, I immediately had to go and see if I could find a way to watch that movie.
Right.
And sure enough, like if you just type in Grave of the Fireflies on YouTube, you can watch several different versions of it. The American dub version, the subtitle version.
For free?
For free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We might link to that below.
Sure. So I started it that night, but this was kind of, it was starting to get a little late. Didn't know if I could put in a full hour and a half into watching this movie. So I started it right from the get-go. It's dark. It is a dark, sad story.
Dark as in like emotionally, not dark as in like you can't see.
I mean, it's at nighttime.
Oh, okay.
The first 5 minutes. It's just, you can tell like, oh man, this is going to be emotionally draining.
Wow. And it's animated too. Yeah.
It's animated. It's the exact same style as Totoro. Just like this, the characters are beautiful and like the settings, you know, all of those, the Ghibli, Miyazaki, those movies, they take the beauty aspect to a different level than I think a lot of, especially movies at the same time period for us, were really going. It's just a different aesthetic, but it's way more.
To me, it's way more artistic or like art focused, maybe.
Sure, it's just a different art direction, but like they just really emphasize detail and things, and that we just kind of skipped over there for a while. So the next night, though, I was really looking forward to watching it.
So you did not watch it?
Didn't watch it. I just watched like those first 5-10 minutes, and it was just brutal. I was just like, all right, first of all, if I continue watching this, I'm going to stay up all night watching it.
Right.
And I don't need to do that. I need to work in the morning. The next night, I was really looking forward to it. My kids were downstairs with me, though, and they were watching, you know, whatever we were all watching. And then once they kind of like, I could tell that they were kind of like no longer interested really in what was on the TV. I was just like, I think I might go ahead and put that on.
We're gonna change the mood real quick.
Completely understanding that like this is gonna be interesting to see how they react to this. Just having watched the first few minutes of that movie, but at the same time, like I trust the creators because again, it was released with Totoro. We love Totoro.
Right.
Maybe there's something in there, you know, that they're gonna really enjoy. Well, I put it on, and 1,000% they were in.
Wow.
Right from the get-go. And to be fair, I started where I left off.
Okay.
So I started, I'd say about the 10-minute mark into the movie.
Okay.
Which is one of those weird kind of story arcs where like it's the type of movie that the ending is shown to you first and then you go through the story.
Right.
So we actually kind of watched it. They did. My kids did. Kind of watched it in a way where you were actually watching it chronologically. And then after it was done and finished, I went back and showed them those first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually has a much happier ending if you watch it that way.
Oh.
Because they give you like a little bit of hope at the end. All of this to say, this is a brutally tragic story about two siblings who live in Japan during, well, I don't know if it's Tokyo, but they live in Japan during World War II.
Right.
And right as the bombs are being dropped and Japan is being leveled.
Wow.
And it's just their story of how they get through, how they try to survive.
Right.
And the hardships that they have to overcome and are forced to face. Tragically, they don't get through it.
Jesus.
And I mean, it is a tough watch.
Yeah.
And, you know, and my poor kids, man, my oldest, it wrecked her. And it like messed her up for a day.
Wow.
Like I remember the next day I went to work, and when I got home, like she was still just kind of like solemn faced and like just not her normal bubbly happy self. And I was just like, what's wrong? And she's like, I think that movie just kind of messed me up last night. And I was like, yeah, that was a tough movie, but I'm really glad that they went through that and experienced such a sad story, because it is an element that we don't readily put into a lot of media anymore.
Yeah.
For kids anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like.
No, and so like for me, I know about Grave of the Fireflies. I feel like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, you and I off the pod a little bit.
Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah. Well, no, it was at the party. Pre-Thanksgiving Day. Before everything went to hell.
Thanksgiving party day. Yeah, you're right.
So we talked about it a little bit, and the more we were talking about it, like I know of it, but I have not seen it. But I do know like it's one of those movies that like is within the, if you rank like the top 10 like bleakest, darkest movies, it's in there.
Right there.
Yeah, it's squarely in there, especially because like the aesthetic of the movie doesn't match what happens. And what I mean, like you mentioned how beautiful it is,
right,
in terms of like the art and the art direction, stuff like that. That's what I mean by that. But what's super interesting about those movies, and I would say even children's media through the late 90s, is that there was a fair amount of that. I mean, I think that when you think of like children's media in the 80s and into the maybe the late 90s, when you think of like children's media was not watered down. And I want to explain watered down, but it was not watered down like it is today. Children's media dealt with some really difficult things and was not afraid to deal with a lot of those things. Now, does every kid get it? No.
Give me an example. What are you talking about?
Well, like, I mean, Black Cauldron, like that is dark AF. You think about like the films that came out. You mentioned like Beethoven. I'm thinking like Homeward Bound. Like that's dark. That's made for kids, but it's dark. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like, dude, that's a dark movie. I mean, hell, go back further. Bambi. Bambi's mom dies like in the first 3 minutes?
No, it's like halfway through that movie.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen Bambi in a while.
It's been a minute.
Okay.
There's way more of like young Bambi in Bambi than
I don't remember.
Older Bambi.
I don't remember.
Well, and you're totally right. Like they were willing to do it, but it was like sparse. It was sprinklings. It was like a moment in that movie. Like Bambi's mother dying, it's tough. It's one scene.
Right.
I mean, I guess then you could argue like later on with the fire and everything, like being caused by man, it's more of an inward thing. But same thing, like Mufasa dying,
right? It's
a moment.
Right.
But when you think back of The Lion King, it's not a sad story.
Correct.
The Lion King is a very happy, but that moment, tough moment. Whereas like the difference for Grave of the Fireflies, it is extraordinarily dark the entire time with moments of happiness.
Interesting. Okay.
It's the exact contrast of it.
I think like what I'm getting at is like the presentation in so much of children's media is, I guess, exactly what you said. It's bleak moments interspersed into a generally uplifting and happy story.
Right.
I don't know, like in comparison to a lot of children's movies now, which, you could say like a lot of Pixar stuff I don't know. I don't know if we like deal with that kind of range of emotion as well.
I think all of our studios and the vast majority of movies that are made nowadays are very aware of how much money we're going to make from this.
Absolutely.
And I think I think Pixar's done an amazing job of like sprinkling in those deeper, tougher moments than a lot of other studios have. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking like Up.
Sure.
Like that opening scene in
Up that's brutal.
Is tough.
Yeah.
There was Toy Story 3.
Right. That's true. That's true.
You're dealing with some really tough things there of, saying goodbye and like accepting what might be death or something like that. And Pixar's obviously like gained like all the critical acclaim for doing those things, doing them well. Like you ever watched Inside Out?
Oh,
when Bing Bong goes away,
and disappears into the whatever, like
brutal.
Yeah,
man. Like, dang, like that'll mess you up. But Grave of the Fireflies is the whole story is just that,
right?
And so, it's just such an interesting thing to me and I think it's a cultural thing. Like it's being more spiritually and emotionally kind of open to those things and understanding that that is part of life,
Sure.
and that needs to be an element of life that you are forced to reckon with.
I agree. And I think that like that, maybe that's what I'm getting at, that so much of media geared towards children, some of those things notwithstanding, like don't force anyone to deal with those kinds of emotions. I mean, maybe not to the point of like Grave of Fireflies where it's just bleak throughout,
Right.
but like so often we want to have that uplifting story.
Right.
And I wonder what that does in terms of the perspective of like, not every story is uplifting. Not everything is happy and ends in a happy manner. So like, is it that we kind of like gloss over those things because obviously, like you just said, that doesn't sell? Or is it one of those like, well, we want a happy kids movie, not something that like, you're going to have to discuss with your kids later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of that,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think it's just, when you look at Japan as a culture, having just dealt with what they did deal with, that movie came out in the 80s,
Sure.
based in the 40s.
Right.
So pretty much everybody that saw that movie as an adult anyway experienced what was happening in it.
Right.
For the most part. Or
was very well
or
aware
at
of
least like it's part of our culture. We had to go through this horrible thing.
Sure.
Whereas on our side of it, like we've been nothing but like, just riding the high horse, for the last however many years,
Yeah.
of where we don't see that as an important value to have, an important understanding to have, because like it's, we're going to be awesome all the time, and it's going to be great, and things will never be bad. And it's just the
right. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like you think about like a lot of that media that, I'm kind of getting at here is the things that are bad. It's always like, okay, it's bad now, but it will be okay.
Right.
And that's not me saying like that's not a positive thing to think about, because it absolutely is.
Right.
But it's like that almost the shirking of that emotion, of that like you don't have to deal with this tough thing because it's going to be fine later.
Right.
Rather than like, no, you got to confront the thing.
Right.
Like you got to confront the monster. In this case, the monster is this like deep emotional trauma, wrought by this, ultimately, wartime thing, but like this deep emotional national trauma.
Right.
And what I love about that is that it deals with it from the children's perspective.
Right.
And so that I know that from what I understand about it, there are adults within the film itself, but everything is from the perspective of the little boy and his littler sister.
Yeah.
You're kind of squarely rooting this in children's media, and you're kind of saying like, here, deal with this.
Right. Well, and I mean, like from like a parental perspective, like I was thinking about it, of you see so many of those things where like somebody's giving advice to somebody else, where it's like, hey man, spoil your kids.
Right.
Like just spoil them, love them, and just spoil the heck out of them. And it's like, like that's good and all, but like you're not really doing them any favors.
Yeah, you're not teaching them how the world is. Too.
Yeah. And like, I mean, the dark exists, and you've got to be aware of it, and not just aware of it, but like if you're going to really take it on, you kind of have to experience some of it.
Right.
And I think it creates a much more well-rounded individual.
Right.
And like, it is tough, and it's hard to like make yourself want to have your kid have to experience such a dark thing. Like there's another one that came out, another animated movie came out within the last 5 years. It's called The Breadwinner. You heard about that one?
Yeah, the one that's like set in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, same thing. Like it's a beautifully
I think
animated
it's still
movie.
on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken.
And it's the same kind of thing of like, and I remember maybe 3 years ago trying to get my kids to watch it back then. And they were just all like,
no.
After watching just a few minutes of it, they were like, I don't like this way making me feel. I'm out. And like, they just didn't care at all.
Right.
Wouldn't watch it. I don't know. Like, I think the only way I got them to watch this movie is that it was very similar to Totoro. Like, you were just looking at it, watching it. They love Totoro so much that they could immediately get into this just because they could tell it was similar.
Yeah.
But man, when the story got tough, they were just like,
so
they weren't willing to walk away from it.
Right.
They were willing to watch it and stay invested in it, but
they
don't think they enjoyed it.
Right.
Like they were definitely, it raised concepts in their brain, which I think is
That's the
valuable
point.
thing.
Right. You said something super interesting.
I do that.
Well, from time to
that
time.
a good
Yeah. Well, not even from time to time. Like it's all the time, basically.
I don't know about that.
You said something super interesting about like the confrontation of those like dark things and like the spoiling kind of thing that you mentioned.
Sure.
I think that that's what media like this enables us to do. It's like, I would hope that the majority or that parents don't want specifically their child to experience this kind of trauma. You know,
Sure.
at least like, and so like that's what this media allows us to do, is to give our children a taste of this trauma in a safe space, so that like there's still this like maybe distance between the thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're still at home. You still have the understanding that like, man, I've got a cupboard full of food over there. Like the things that they're going through are obviously not a concern to me.
Right.
But I can relate.
Exactly.
I can understand, like, man, that would be terrifying to go through that.
Exactly. And I'm in a safe, comfortable position to where I can watch this and then I can deal with it.
Right.
And I can have those conversations surrounding that thing. I think that's the point of that kind of traumatic media, dark. I don't know how to like approach that or how to qualify it, but like that's the point of it.
Right. And we had this conversation on an episode where we talked about what is the point of the tragedy? Why do we watch the tragedy?
Oh yeah.
And like it's so interesting, you know, whereas in that conversation you're talking about it obviously like we were talking about it in terms of full grown adults.
Right.
Why do you watch the tragedy? And obviously like that's why you watch, is to understand the differences and be able to find joy in your life no matter how hard it is. It's not that bad.
Right. Or it's I know how to deal with it when it gets that bad too.
Right. But it's also the necessity. And I think that was like something we mentioned in that episode, was like the necessity of the tragedy.
Right.
But how, you know, we don't utilize it enough. And there's not enough examples, especially for kids, to have to work through that.
And I wonder, like, now considering that, I wonder if because we don't expose our children to those kinds of things, that then it creates more adults that are reticent to engage in that.
Right. They're emotionally stunted.
Very much so. And also like this perspective of like everything has to work out and everything has to be great and everything has to be phenomenal, because like that's what, you know, to some degree social media is posting or pushing forward. That's what, you know, popular media as a whole is pushing forth. Like, no, it all has to go well. It has to be perfect. It all has to go well, and you have to do it the correct way.
Happy all the time and satisfied all the time and get the best of everything. And, yeah.
If we maybe expose a younger generation to like these things that are tough in a safe environment, in a manner that allows us to engage with them, then there's going to be that more of, we don't have to engage as adults in this tragedy because we understand it a little bit better.
Right.
And we're not maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say like we're not drawn to it, because I think like we kind of all like the car wreck, if you will. Like we like we like to see that.
Yeah, that's why we watch NASCAR. That's why NASCAR exists. Everybody wants to see that big wreck.
Yeah. But like, because we know how to deal with it, it's not a novelty. It's a commonplace experience, maybe.
Sure.
I think that maybe that's the heart of what you're getting at too, is like, we have to deal with these things. It's beneficial to us to watch Grave of the Fireflies.
Right.
Like it's not a fun experience. It's not an enjoyable experience in one sense, but it's an enriching experience in another.
I can think of two examples like growing up of movies that certainly were not this bleak,
right,
but that were very important to me and that I enjoyed watching them. Even if maybe like I didn't like consciously like pay attention to those parts, it was still something that was part of the movie and part of the story that I still was aware of. First one is Old Yeller.
Oh God.
It's interesting that both of these are about dogs, and both of them, like, the tragedy doesn't happen till the very end.
Right.
But then there's still like that happy little nugget right there at the end.
Yeah.
Now go ahead and go play
Whiskey?
now.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Loved Old Yeller.
Yeah.
That theme song still slaps.
Oh yeah.
You know, come back, Yeller, best doggone dog in the West. Good shit. Love that. I can't tell you how many times I watched Old Yeller growing up, and I don't know if I like, maybe when it got to the part every time where like the hogs came in and like he had to fight with the hogs, maybe I was like, all right, I'm gonna go outside now. maybe I didn't really deal with it, but like I still understood the ending of the story.
When he has to shoot Old Yeller.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like from that point to the end of it, I'm out. Not watching the rest of this. The other one is where the red fern grows.
Oh my God.
My 4th grade teacher read that story to us.
Yep.
And then we watched the movie
In
afterwards.
class.
In class.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I remember, like, you know, end of the story, like my teacher's just bawling her face off, Miss Isbell, bawling, absolutely like crying, like I was like the cool kid that got him and got her tissue. Brownie
78
points.
years old.
Brownie points. Yeah.
Not you, the teacher. Here you go, ma'am.
But like same kind of thing. It's interesting, like that similar kind of story arc
Sure.
where they build you up all these fun adventures they go on, these great things they accomplish, all the hard work they have to go through together for this horrible thing to happen at the end. Again, where nature attacks your dog. So you know, kind of a similar story. No, I remember like that one, like really being like just
Shit.
putting you in a
Yeah.
bad mood for a couple of days of like,
Right.
and like, so when I saw that in my kids, I was kind of like, that was good for you.
Yep.
That was really good for you
Yeah.
to have to go through that.
For me, it was like Fox and the Hound.
Yeah.
You know, like something like that. I mean, I mentioned Homeward Bound earlier. Actually, I vividly remember Homeward Bound 2, which came out like mid 90s,
Right.
maybe. I don't know exactly when. And there's a scene where like a dog is left in like the rain and it's a puppy in a box or something, like just wrecked me. Just wrecked the young me. And like, I think you're right. It's that like, this is not a fun experience, but this is good for you. Like
Yeah.
this ultimately like
It gives you a piece of humanity.
right.
It makes
And-
you a better human
And like I think
to have that empathy.
like that's something that our parents did a good job in, is not sheltering us from those negative things, you know, or giving us the experience of a negative thing in a space where like you can deal with this, it's going to be fine.
Right.
I don't know if modern culture enables us to do that as much as maybe it did, or maybe like we just got away with it more. I don't know.
That was what fascinated me about it too, is that
Right.
my kids were immediately connected to it.
Right.
Because of Totoro.
Sure.
Like because of that animation style, they were attracted to it.
Right.
And they were invested, and they were going to watch it wherever it took them.
Yep.
Whereas if it's anything else, like there's just so many options at the first hint of boredom or of, ooh, I don't like the way this is making me feel. There's so many more options for them to go watch anything else. So I found it really interesting that animation style was able to just grab
Right.
them
Sure.
and hold them and force them to deal with that thing.
Yeah.
Like they would not look away from it,
Yeah.
which was fantastic.
And I think like you're right. Like they're better for it.
Yeah.
It's not a fun situation, but they're
No.
better for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
I would like to see more of that.
Agreed.
You know, I would like to see more dealing with those depths of emotion. And I think like what we said earlier, that creates more emotionally attuned individuals
Yeah.
in a world where we're becoming far less so.
Right.
We're becoming far more, I think you said, reticent to deal with those things and acknowledge that those feelings and those tragedies exist in other people as well.
Right.
And becoming a little less human-centered.
Yeah, a little less empathetic to the world.
100%.
at large.
Yeah. You got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Like that. That's
That's deep.
yeah.
Yeah,
it was an interesting couple of days.
Yeah.
Crazy enough, like I showed you this. Like a key like prop in that movie is this candy tin.
Yeah.
That's like really important to the younger sister throughout the whole movie, and she carries it around and eats candies out of it every so often. Oddly enough, when we were in Chicago a couple of months ago, we went to Chinatown, went into a store and like got the kids some candies and stuff like that, bought them some stuff, and brought it all home. Didn't pay any attention to it. And one of the things they bought in that store was a candy tin exactly like this
Oh my
candy tin in
God.
the movie, which again has a really dark ending
Right.
where I'm not going to spoil it.
Yeah. Don't
I
spoil
guess,
it. Don't
I
spoil
guess. But like the little girl carries it around her whole time, and then when she's gone, the brother has it too. So like it follows them the whole journey. So like when I saw that on our counter a few days later, I'm like, what the hell is this? Who put this here? And my wife was like, we bought that in Chicago. We bought that at that store in Chinatown. I'm like, are you serious? Like, that's nuts. I went and found my kids. I was like, look at this. Ah!
And they're like bawling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
You know, I think about this in terms of also the season too. It's not that like everything we do in December is Christmas oriented, but I think like you think of so many of those like classic Christmas stories. There's a reason why the Christmas song talks about like the ghost stories, scary ghost stories.
Right.
It's that kind of like the confrontation of the negation, the confrontation of the negative, the confrontation of the tragedy.
Yeah.
And realizing like that just makes us whole humans.
1000% true.
Well, now you got anything else?
Nope.
Well, we want to know, what do you think about tragedy in children's media? I think that's probably what we'll title this episode.
There you go.
Tragedy in children's media.
Sure.
And what does it, or how should we deal with it?
Or what are some other examples of it that, you found useful with your kids?
Yeah. Or useful
or just-
as a kid,
Yeah,
like now as an adult.
Within yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also want to know, what do you think about the Jura single malt Scotch whiskey aged 10 years? Kyle just did the chef's kiss.
Yeah, that's what that was. I wasn't pecking Nick on the cheek there.
I mean, I'll lean in closer. You can get in touch with us through email. That's drepandstone@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with us through social media.
It's always one word, Drep and Stone. DREP and Stone. You find us, you like a thing, share a thing, laugh at a thing, comment on that thing, and then other people know about that thing.
That's how that works. Speaking of things, you can support the podcast through our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/drepandstone. You can also support the podcast by rating Drep and Stone wherever it is you find great podcasts like this one. And finally, in your travels, if you're going anywhere over the next couple of weeks, you can support the podcast by telling someone about Drep and Stone.
Hell yeah. Tell them. Let them know.
Let them know. On that note, hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
May your glass overflow.
And your ass never show. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. I have to hit record before I do that.
Give it to him.
You're so ready. I was going
Just
into
do it.
Hey, can you take that mic cord and flop that over that way?
Oh.
Yeah.
Flop whatever you want me to flop.
You flop. You do.
Where you want me to flop?
You flop it. Who doesn't want to look at the faces?
My eyes are up here.
Even. You remember when our wives used to say that we had faces made for podcast?
Yeah.
Does yours still say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too. You know, show me that Tic Tac real quick. It's got a suction cup. You just.
Got it.
When I was editing that, Carol walked in. She's like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "I don't want to talk about it." And she's like, "No, what?" I was like, "She's like, I'm out." Kirkbird. Hold on, there's a hair on the mic here.
Gross. There's a floater of some sort. It could just be. Can you tell the difference in a person from Alabama and Tennessee?
Amazon? I was like, "We going camping?" I already see a problem with the setup.
What's that?
If we keep doing this, we got to figure out how to place your mics so you don't go like over here. And like over there. Exactly.
Again, now it's a real episode.
Correct.
I talked over here to the side, not into the mic. I did my part.
Y'all got that cutty sark? Put that with Coke. Delicious. Shile?
Andy Serkis.